Matt, listen, every now and again you go on websites and you look and see how much your favorite hip hop artist charges for a verse. And Nipsey Hussle might be 50 grand. DMX might be $25 if you send it to him by Venmo. I wonder how much Coolio charges because I want this written in stone for Fight Night picks. I want him to do this. And I'm not a good singer, but here we go. We've been spending most our lives living in a striker's paradise. And if it sounded nerdy when I said it, think how cool it would sound if Coolio said it. And getting ready for this fight, we have an awesome one between Michel Pereira taking on Russia's Zelim Imadaev. And Matt, you know what you're going to get. I mean, Zelim Imadaev, in his time with Fight Nights Global and on the regional scene in Russia, undefeated every single one of his wins by knockout or TKO. He looked amazing. Great boxing, decent wrestling that we saw on the regional scene. Comes into the UFC. I wouldn't say he's totally laid an egg, but his stock was way up here and it's way down here now because in his first fight, he fights Max Griffin. All three of the judges scored the first round of that fight at 10-8 for Griffin. And then it got funky fresh because a lot of people, majority of the media members involved, and I'm talking into the double digits that voted over on MMA decisions, and we take that with a lot of respect, scored that fight a draw, 28-28. So they gave the last two to Imadaev. The judges, on the other hand, one scored it a draw 28-28. The other two had it 29-27 for Griffin. So it's not enough to just look at the numbers and say, oh, geez, you know, he lost a fight to a guy that's primarily a boxer in Griffin. I want to say this. Griffin fought with a good game plan, but Imadaev really rallied in the last two rounds, and I think that's great. The trouble is, in his last fight, he's fighting Hot Chocolate Danny Roberts, and listen, you wanted an all-timer fight. Remember that fight that he had against David Zavada? I'll never forget it. But if you look at that fight, he lost by finish in the second round. So it's not that great for Imadaev. For Michel Pereira, you know what you got. I mean, this is a guy with Road FC that was doing moonsaults off the cage. He was doing illegal stuff that wasn't illegal. I mean, he's 23-11, and he's got, you know, no contest peppered in there at odd points as well. He's almost 27 years old. That's an insane amount of cage experience. And oh, by the way, in his two last fights, he looked like absolute hot garbage against Tristan Connolly, and we say it, but the kid blew his load early and he had nothing left. I mean, listen, you studded the poor guy out and now he's just riding off into the pasture in that fight. Tristan Connolly getting the finish there. And then in the fight that he had against Diego Sanchez, it was a weird one. I mean, listen, the guru, Joshua Fabia, the guy who uses his index finger to do weird stuff, he really guided Diego Sanchez to a spiritual victory and he picked up the win. Of course, it was by disqualification due to an illegal knee. It was a weird one. Did the referee coach him through it? I don't know. I mean, it looked like it, but it was an odd fight. So with Michel Pereira, it's always the fear of the unknown. Zelim Imadaev, he lost his last two fights. You knew what you had on the regional scene. What do you make of this one? Because for me, I just want to say this. Probably one that I'd stay away from.
Oh, 100%. Just due to the unknown, and really the unknown surrounding both guys. Because with Imadaev, like you said, he has that heart that we saw in the Griffin fight. And he's done well in moments in different fights. It's just he hasn't really been able to put it together for a sustained amount of time over a 15-minute fight. Because with Pereira, you know he's going to come out, do a bunch of crazy things. Because it's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to change my fighting style. He's not going to change fighting style. I can almost guarantee you what he's going to do. And that's that I can't guarantee you what he's going to do. He's just going to do as many unorthodox techniques, flying knees. He's going to be doing the running man, then throwing big punches. Like, he just does wild things. But you know that when that's your big game plan, you're going to end up getting tired at some point. And this is a guy who we've seen it. It happened before the Tristan Connolly fight. He was a huge favorite going into for a reason. Connolly, a lightweight, moving up on short notice. He really should have been in the UFC anyways. And then all of a sudden he comes out and he just beats Michel Pereira, a guy who has so much hype behind him, especially after the Hot Chocolate win. But if Imadaev can get past sort of the danger zone, as Kenny Loggins would call it, if he can get past, 7 minutes, I do think he'll be able to have some success as the fight goes on. But the problem is that's such a big storm you have to deal with. And I think Pereira realizes if I lose this fight, it's, it's basically a Johnny Walker level, like, off a bridge hype train. And he maybe never reached the same heights as Johnny Walker did, but still, you go from being this guy who everyone's talking about, all of a sudden, now you're this guy who, remember he used to do all those crazy things? So Pereira needs a win if he wants to stay in the UFC and keep on making noise, and I think he realizes that, so I think he'll be able to get a win eventually. And I think this weekend will be it.
Both guys need a win, though. That's the trouble. I mean, you lose two fights like this. Again, the first one for Imadaev, call it close, call it whatever you want. He didn't win the fight, even though a lot of people thought it was a draw, and even a draw is not a win, right? In his last fight, he gets finished by Danny Roberts. if somebody hits me up with an MMA math roundabout of how people win, you have no sweet friggin' clue, because Imadaev loses to Danny Roberts. Michel Pereira beats Danny Roberts. That doesn't mean that Michel Pereira beats Zelim Imadaev. That doesn't mean anything. So if we look at the numbers over on Tapology, they don't mean anything either, but they may build an argument. Out of 704 votes, 76% going with Pereira, 74% of those voters picking him to win by knockout. If I look over at the odds, it gets interesting because it's pretty well a pick 'em fight. Zelim Imadaev opened as a plus 115, got up to a point where he's a plus 160, so a lot of early money came in on Pereira, and now it evened out, and it's actually pretty well a pick 'em fight. I mean, Pereira's a slight favorite, like a minus 110, minus 115 to a minus 110, minus 105 for Imadaev. They're really close. I started this off, you go back, you watch the tape, and exactly what you said. Michel Pereira is a wild man, and he either slips up, makes a ton of mistakes, or I wouldn't say he gets lucky because there's some technique involved, but he's just such a wild man that if somebody doesn't see the freight train coming in the middle of the night, they get hit by it. And that's just what happens. We saw that with, Danny Roberts. I mean, that was one of the weirdest fights ever. If you have a friend that's never watched MMA, just go show them that if they want to see something weird. Don't show them the Showtime kick for Pettis and Henderson. It was a good fight. Show them Michel Pereira and Danny Roberts. But for Imadaev, I like that rally. I like the fact that he's able to kind of wear things out. I don't see Pereira taking him down 100%. Like it's one or the other here. It's one that I would stay away from. So there's a lot of hesitance on my part. I'm going to go with Imadaev, and it's a roundabout thing because, again, you pick Pereira to beat Connolly. You pick him to beat Sanchez, and he was beating Sanchez. But Diego Sanchez isn't Zelim Imadaev. I think Imadaev is, he's had some time off here. It's been a while since that Danny Roberts fight. If you want me to get into the exact specifics, it's been 9 months. So he's had time to really kind of recalibrate, get ready. He's not coming out here too early. And for Pereira, again, yeah, he has to prove something, but it's also a guy that's super exciting, and the UFC would definitely still keep around. I think Imadaev is going to be able to get the win. I think if anything, it's going to wear on, like you said, and we'll see a win for the Russian here.
I might be biased. I might be picking with my heart, but I think Michel Pereira get back on winning track. I just do. I think we'll be able to lay something crazy. I think we'll be on Twitter all night long. I think we'll all be talking about it the next day. I think Pereira gets back on track.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, I'd rather see that, right? Who wouldn't? So Matt, we're really differing here, but path to victory for both guys. You're going with Pereira. I'm going to go with Imadaev. I'm really looking forward to this card. A lot to look forward to. You have Augusto Sakai taking on Alistair Overeem in our main event, so you keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt. And as we always say, let's get into it.